The rain hammered against the windows of the assembly hall while Alice Brennan read the message for the third time. Her hands shook slightly as she held the datapad. Outside, 40,000 colonists were going about their evening routines, unaware that their entire world had just been handed an expiration date. The holographic display flickered above the table, showing the Dominion seal in cold blue light. 12 warships hung in orbit like vultures waiting for something to die. Alice had seen them arrive 6 hours ago, their hulls gleaming against the darkness of space, beautiful in a terrible way. "Read it aloud," Dr. Henry Wade said from across the room. He sat in his usual chair, fingers steepled under his chin. His calm voice always helped during crisis moments. Alice cleared her throat. "To the human settlement designated New Harvest, by authority of the Dominion Council, you are hereby notified of new protective measures. All human colonies will accept vassal status within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in corrective action. Terms are as follows." She paused, taking a breath. The next part made her stomach turn. 1. Immediate surrender of all governmental authority to Dominion oversight. 2. Resource tribute of 30% annual production. 3. Military occupation of primary population centers. 4. Mandatory technological limitations on all industrial capacity. 5. Acceptance of protected species classification with associated restrictions on expansion and development. Henry leaned back in his chair. "They're putting us in a cage." "A gilded cage," Alice corrected bitterly. "They'll let us live. They'll even let us farm and build families. We just can't ever leave the yard." The door opened, and Commander Owen Price entered, water dripping from his jacket. His security force consisted of 40 people armed with nothing more than crowd control equipment. Against 12 warships, they might as well be holding sticks. "The colonists are starting to hear rumors," Owen said. "Some intercepted the Dominion broadcast before we could filter it. People are scared." Alice set down the datapad. "Call an assembly, everyone. I won't hide this from them." 2 hours later, the hall was packed. Farmers still wearing mud on their boots stood next to teachers and engineers. Children sat on their parents' shoulders trying to see over the crowd. Alice walked to the podium feeling the weight of every eye on her. She told them everything. No sugar coating, no false hope. When she finished, silence blanketed the room like snow. Then the questions started. "What did Earth say?" someone shouted from the back. Alice felt her jaw tighten. "Earth accepted vassal status 14 years ago. They advise we do the same." Angry murmurs rippled through the crowd. Earth had 11 billion people and hundreds of ships. If they had knelt, what chance did New Harvest have? "We could fight," a young voice called out. Alice recognized Lena Frost, one of their shuttle pilots. She was barely 23, born on this world under these skis. "We could at least try." Owen shook his head. "With what farming equipment? They have warships, we have tractors." "We have our dignity," Lena shot back. "We came here to be free. My parents didn't cross 14 light years just to bow to some bureaucrat with tentacles." Laughter broke out at that, nervous but genuine. Alice let it run its course before raising her hand for quiet. "I'm calling a vote," she said. "In 24 hours we decide together. Accept the terms and live as vassals, or refuse and face the consequences. This is your world as much as mine. You deserve a voice in its fate." The assembly dissolved into heated conversations. Alice retreated to her office with Henry and Owen following close behind. "You know what they'll choose," Henry said quietly. "These people came here for freedom. Most will vote to fight even if it means dying." "Then we die free," Owen muttered. Alice wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. She had sent an encrypted message to Earth hours ago, not requesting help but simply recording their choice. Someone should know what happened here. Someone should remember. The next morning, Lena Frost sat in the colony's sensor station watching her screens with tired eyes. She had pulled a double shift, unable to sleep with everything happening. The Dominion fleet maintained its position in high orbit, silent and threatening. Then her equipment registered something odd. Multiple contacts at the edge of the system, large mass signatures moving fast. She adjusted the sensors, thinking it was interference from the local asteroid belt, but the signals remained, growing stronger. Lena called Owen on the comm. "Commander, I'm picking up something weird. Could be ships, maybe a dozen of them." "Dominion reinforcements?" Owen asked, his voice tight. "I don't think so. These readings don't match any known Dominion profile. They're running dark. No transponders, no identification signals. Probably sensor ghosts. The storm last night might have damaged the array." "Sir, I triple-checked the calibration. These are real contacts, and they're headed our way." Owen sighed over the comm. "Keep monitoring. Report any changes. We've got enough problems without chasing shadows." Lena acknowledged and returned to her screen, but she knew her equipment. She had maintained these sensors herself for 3 years. Whatever was out there was real. The contacts moved with purpose, maintaining formation. She pulled up long-range scans and started recording everything. The objects were huge, larger than the Dominion warships. Their trajectory would bring them into the inner system in approximately 72 hours. Exactly when the ultimatum expired. Lena felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She opened a new file and began detailed analysis, her fingers flying across the keyboard. If these were more Dominion ships, New Harvest was finished. If they were something else, she needed to know what before they arrived. Outside her window, the twin moons of New Harvest rose over the fields. Somewhere up there, 12 warships waited for an answer. And somewhere beyond them, something unknown was coming home through the dark. The countdown had begun. 48 hours remained when the nightmares began in orbit. Admiral Tresh of the Hakari stood on his command deck, mandibles clicking in agitation. His compound eyes studied the tactical display where those mysterious contacts continued their approach. His communications officer had sent 17 hail requests. All returned silence. "Increase scanning intensity," Tresh ordered. His translator converted the clicking sounds into standard galactic speech. "I want identification before they reach weapons range." Below on New Harvest, the vote had concluded an hour ago. Alice stood before the results displayed on her screen. 62% had chosen resistance. 38% had wanted to surrender. The colony was committed now, for better or worse. She had expected relief or fear. Instead, she felt only numbness. "They deserve to know we tried," Henry said beside her. He had voted for surrender but accepted the majority decision without complaint. That was his way. Alice activated the colony-wide broadcast. "This is Governor Brennan. The vote is complete. We have chosen to refuse the Dominion terms. I have informed their fleet commander of our decision. Whatever happens next, we face it together." The response was immediate. Half the colony erupted in cheers. The other half began evacuating children to the underground shelters that had been built years ago for tornado protection. Alice hoped they would be enough. Admiral Tresh received the rejection with cold calculation. He had expected this outcome. Humans were emotionally unstable, prone to irrational choices. The Dominion Council had warned him about their tendency toward self-destructive defiance. "Destroy the mining station," he ordered. His weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, that facility is unmanned. It serves no strategic purpose." "It serves as a demonstration. Fire." The mining station in the asteroid belt had been operating for 12 years, automatically processing ore and sending refined metals to New Harvest via cargo drone. It took the Dominion cruiser 3 seconds to reduce it to debris. The explosion bloomed in the night sky above New Harvest, visible even through the cloud cover. a new star that burned and died within minutes. Alice watched from the assembly hall steps as colonists pointed upward, their voices hushed. "He's showing us what he can do," Owen said grimly. "He's showing us what he will do," Alice corrected, "unless we change our minds in the next 2 days." Lena had not slept in 36 hours. The mysterious contacts had resolved into distinct vessels, and what she was seeing made no sense. The ships were enormous, some measuring over 2 kilometers in length. Their design was unusual, almost primitive compared to Dominion architecture. She ran the profiles through every database she could access. Nothing matched. Then she started digging through historical archives, searching older records from before first contact with the Dominion. At 300 hours, she found it. Project Distant Star, an Earth initiative from 140 years ago. 12 generation ships had been launched toward distant star systems before faster-than-light drives existed. They were supposed to travel for centuries at sublight speeds, carrying frozen colonists to new worlds. Everyone assumed they were lost. When Earth developed FTL technology through Dominion contact, the generation ships became obsolete relics. Nobody had thought about them in over a century. Lena ran the numbers again. If one of those ships had detected galactic transmissions and changed course, if they had spent over 100 years developing their own technology in isolation, the timeline matched. She grabbed her comm and called Alice directly. "Protocol be damned. Governor, I know what those ships are." 20 minutes later, Alice, Henry, and Owen stood in the sensor station staring at Lena's findings. The young pilot explained everything while her screens showed the approaching fleet in real time. "Generation ships," Henry breathed. "My God, they survived." "They did more than survive," Lena said, pointing to the energy readings. "Look at these power signatures. They're running reactors that make our fusion plants look like candles. Whatever they developed out there, it's advanced." Alice felt hope stir in her chest for the first time in days. "Can we communicate with them?" "I've been trying. They're not responding to standard frequencies." Then, as if summoned by the conversation, every speaker in the sensor station crackled to life. The voice that emerged was human, male, speaking English with an accent Alice had never heard before. Formal and old-fashioned, like something from historical recordings. "This is Admiral Castor Gray of the Distant Fleet. Message for Governor Alice Brennan of New Harvest Colony. We received your transmission. We are 72 hours from your position. Do not surrender. We are coming home." The channel went dead. Alice tried to respond but received only static. She looked at the others and saw her own shock reflected on their faces. "They heard our message to Earth," Henry said slowly. "They intercepted it somehow." "And they're coming to help," Lena added, her voice filled with wonder. "They're actually coming." Owen was less optimistic. "They're 3 days out. The deadline is 2 days, and we have no idea if they're actually friendly or what they want." "They said don't surrender," Alice countered. "That's enough for now." The news spread through New Harvest faster than any official announcement could travel. Within hours, everyone knew. The reaction was divided. Some saw it as salvation. Others feared it was a Dominion trick or that the mysterious fleet would be worse than the current threat. Admiral Tresh detected the approaching vessels at the same time. His tactical officer provided analysis that made his mandibles clench tight. 47 ships, Admiral. Unknown configuration. They are not broadcasting identification. Human vessels? Possibly. The material's composition suggests Earth origin, but the design is unfamiliar. Tresh opened a channel to New Harvest. Alice answered, her face appearing on his screen. "Governor Brennan, you have violated the terms of negotiation. You have summoned military forces. This is an act of war." Alice met his compound eyes steadily. "Admiral, I have no idea who those ships are. They're not from Earth. They're not under my command. I'm as confused as you are. Trash studied her face, his species' natural ability to read emotional states telling him she spoke truth. This complicated matters considerably. If those vessels enter this system with hostile intent, I will destroy your colony before they arrive. You have 24 hours to identify them and guarantee their peaceful intentions. The channel closed. Alice slumped in her chair. Henry put a hand on her shoulder while Lena continued monitoring the mysterious fleet. They're accelerating, Lena reported. Changing formation. They're not slowing down anymore. They're speeding up. On the main display, the 47 contacts arranged themselves into a pattern that Alice recognized from military history texts. It was an attack formation, old-fashioned, from the age of wet navy warfare, but unmistakable in its intent. The distant fleet was not coming to negotiate. They were coming to fight. 12 hours before the deadline, the first clear images came through. Lena had enhanced the sensor data as much as possible, and what appeared on the screens made everyone in the command center fall silent. The ships were black, not the sleek black of modern stealth coating, but the scarred black of ablative armor that had been struck by micrometeorites for over a century. Their hulls looked ancient and deadly. "Those are warships," Owen said quietly. 31 of them by my count. The rest look like civilian vessels. "They're protecting the colony ships," Henry observed. "Those people are still refugees after all this time, still looking for a home." Alice stared at the formations. Whoever commanded that fleet knew what they were doing. The civilian vessels stayed in the center, shielded by overlapping fields of fire from the warships. It spoke of experience, of hard lessons learned in the dark between stars. "Try hailing them again," Alice ordered. Lena worked her console for several minutes before shaking her head. "Nothing. They're listening but not responding." Then, as if making a decision, a communication channel opened. The holographic projector in the command center flickered to life, and a man appeared before them. Admiral Castor Gray looked approximately 60 years old, though Alice suspected ship time calculations made aging complicated. His hair was iron gray, cut military short. He wore a uniform that resembled ancient Earth naval dress but modified with extra pockets and equipment loops. Behind him, the bridge was cramped and dimly lit, every surface covered in access panels and exposed systems. "Governor Brennan," Gray said. His voice carried authority that came from decades of absolute command. "I apologize for the delayed response. We had to verify your identity and assess the tactical situation." Alice stepped forward. "Admiral Gray, we appreciate your arrival, but I need to understand what's happening. Who are you? What do you want?" "Direct questions. Good." Gray's expression remained neutral. "We represent 3 of the original generation ships: Endurance, Perseverance, and Determination. We launched from Earth 127 years ago, ship time. 2 generations have been born and died in transit. We never reached our destination systems because we detected Dominion transmissions 40 years ago and altered course to investigate." "You've been watching us," Henry said. "We've been watching the entire galaxy," Gray corrected. "Learning. We monitored first contact between Earth and the Dominion. We saw humanity accept protected species status. We observed the colonies spreading out, always under Dominion oversight. We watched our species kneel." His voice carried barely controlled anger on that last word. "We didn't cross the dark for 127 years to come home and kneel," Gray continued. "We were sent out to preserve humanity, to be a backup plan if Earth faced extinction. Instead, we find Earth alive but caged. So we're offering New Harvest a choice. Stand with us, build something free, or we'll leave you to your fate and find another world." Alice felt the weight of his words. "Admiral, the Dominion has 12 warships in orbit. You have 47 ships, but are they enough? Can you actually protect us?" Gray's expression shifted slightly, something that might have been a cold smile. Governor, we've spent over a century in isolation. No Dominion technology, no trading partners, no support structure. Everything we have, we built ourselves from raw materials scavenged along the way. We've had to innovate just to survive. That doesn't answer my question, Alice pressed. Watch. The channel switched to an external view. One of Gray's warships, a vessel designated Hammer, moved away from the formation. It oriented toward an asteroid several thousand kilometers distant, a chunk of rock roughly the size of a city block. Space around the Hammer distorted. Alice couldn't see anything fire, no missiles or energy beams. But the asteroid simply crumpled inward as if crushed by an invisible fist. Then it exploded into dust. The channel returned to Gray's face. We weaponized our experimental FTL drives, gravity manipulation technology. We can tear spacetime in focused areas. It's not elegant, but it works. Owen whistled softly. The Dominion has never seen anything like that. We know, Gray said. We've studied their tactics through observation. They rely on standardized weapons and strategies. We're bringing something completely outside their experience. Alice looked at the others before turning back to Gray. If you fight the Dominion here, they'll retaliate, not just against New Harvest, but against Earth, against all human colonies. Are you prepared for that? Gray's expression hardened. Governor, my people were born in the dark. We've known nothing but recycled air and rationed water our entire lives. We've survived reactor failures, hull breaches, disease outbreaks, and the slow grinding pressure of knowing we might die before ever seeing a planet. We've already paid the price for freedom. The question is whether you're willing to pay it too. The challenge hung in the air. Before Alice could respond, Lena interrupted. Governor, Admiral Tresh is hailing us. Emergency priority. Gray nodded. Answer it, let him see me. Alice activated the channel. Tresh's compound eyes took in the scene immediately, focusing on Gray. So the mystery is solved, Tresh said. Ancient human vessels, obsolete technology, you should have stayed lost. Admiral Tresh, Gray replied calmly. You have 1 hour to leave this system. Take your fleet and go. This is your only warning. Tresh's mandibles clattered in what might have been laughter. You threaten me. With generation ships, I have modern warships built in Dominion yards. You have relics held together with desperation. We have something you don't, Gray said. We have nothing to lose. The channel went dead from Tresh's end. Alice turned to Gray. He won't leave. His pride won't allow it. The Dominion doesn't back down from threats. Then he'll learn something new today, Gray said. Governor, I need your answer. Will New Harvest stand with the distant fleet? Will you help us build something worth the century we spent reaching you? Alice looked at Henry and Owen. Henry nodded slowly. Owen shrugged, a gesture that said they were committed now regardless. We already voted to resist, Alice said. I suppose that's your answer. Good, get your people underground. This won't take long. Gray's image flickered out. Lena checked her display. The distant fleet is moving into attack positions. Tresh's ships are responding. Governor, we're about to witness the first battle between humans and the Dominion. No, Alice said quietly, watching the tactical display. We're about to witness what happens when someone refuses to kneel. The hour ticked down to nothing. Neither side blinked. Then the killing started. The first Dominion cruiser died, without understanding what killed it. Lena watched the sensor data from the underground command center, her hands gripping the console edge. The distant fleet ship designated Anvil released something that her instruments couldn't properly classify. Space itself bent around the Dominion vessel, compression waves visible as distortions against the starfield. The cruiser's hull folded inward like paper in a fist. Metal screamed across vacuum and radio frequencies. 3 seconds later, the reactor containment failed and the ship became a brief new sun. Holy hell, Owen breathed. Admiral Tresh's remaining 11 ships scattered, executing emergency burns to gain distance. But the black ships were faster than they should be. Gray's vessels used their gravity drives in rapid microbursts, appearing beside Dominion targets before conventional sensors could track the movement. Henry monitored the tactical display with clinical detachment, analyzing what he was seeing. They're using their FTL drives as short-range tactical jumps. The Dominion ships can't predict where they'll appear next. Another cruiser took a gravitational shear through its midsection. The hulls separated cleanly. Both have spinning away into the dark trailing debris and frozen atmosphere. Alice forced herself to watch. This was happening because of New Harvest, because of their vote to resist. She needed to witness every moment. Admiral Tresh finally adapted. He ordered his ships into a defensive sphere formation, overlapping their shields and concentrating fire. When 2 of Gray's destroyers jumped into attack, 6 Dominion ships fired simultaneously. The destroyer on the left took the coordinated blast directly. Its gravity shields held for almost 2 seconds before collapsing. Energy weapons carved through the hull, venting atmosphere in brilliant white jets. The ship tumbled, crippled. "They're evacuating," Lena reported, picking up emergency beacons. "I'm reading life pods launching." Gray's voice cut across their channel, cold as void. "Hammer, Forge, cover the recovery. All other ships continue attack pattern." "He's not stopping," Alice said. "Why would he?" Owen replied. "Tresh threatened to destroy us. Gray said he'd make them leave. He's following through." The battle continued its terrible mathematics. Another Dominion ship fell, then another. But the distant fleet paid prices too. A destroyer took critical damage trying to protect the civilian vessels when Tresh attempted to force Gray's hand by targeting the refugees. It limped away, trailing molten metal, over 100 crew lost. Tresh's fleet was down to 6 operational ships. He finally opened a channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Cease fire. We request terms of surrender and safe passage from this system." Gray's response was immediate. "No, you had your chance to leave. You threatened civilians. You killed my people. There are no terms." Alice felt her stomach drop. She grabbed the comm and overrode the channel. "Admiral Gray, this is Governor Brennan. Stand down, that's enough." Silence answered her. Another Dominion ship exploded. "Admiral Gray," Alice's voice rose. "I am the elected governor of New Harvest. This is my world you're defending. I'm ordering you to stop this." More silence. 5 Dominion ships remained, all damaged. The distant fleet moved in for the kill. Henry leaned close to Alice. "If he destroys them all, the Dominion will never forgive us. They'll send armadas. Earth will suffer. Every human colony will be put to the sword." Alice knew he was right. Victory here meant death everywhere else. She tried the channel again. "Castor Gray, listen to me. You spent 127 years in the dark to preserve humanity. Don't throw that away for revenge. Let them go, please." The firing paused. Gray's face appeared on the display. His expression was carved from ice. "Governor, we've lived in the dark so long we've forgotten what mercy looks like. We've forgotten what it means to show restraint. We only remember survival and the mission." "Then let me remind you," Alice said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Mercy means being strong enough to stop when you've won. You've proven your point. The Dominion knows they can't push us around anymore. That's enough. Let them retreat with that knowledge." Gray stared at her for 10 long seconds. Behind him, his bridge crew waited for orders. "All ships cease fire," Gray finally said. "Hold positions." He switched to a broadcast channel aimed at Tresh. "You have 10 minutes to leave this system. Every ship. If we detect you again within 20 light years, we will not offer mercy a second time. Your survivors will tell the Dominion Council what happens when they threaten humanity. Now run." Tresh's remaining ships burned for the edge of the system at maximum acceleration. They left their dead behind, unable to recover the life pods and wreckage. It was a humiliation the Dominion rarely experienced. Alice slumped in her chair, feeling like she had aged 10 years in the past hour. "They're requesting shuttle clearance," Lena reported. "Admiral Gray wants to meet you in person." 2 hours later, Alice stood at the landing pad watching a battered shuttle descend through New Harvest atmosphere. The craft was old, patched in a dozen places, but it flew steady. The ramp lowered and Castor Gray emerged. He moved carefully in the full gravity, his body adapted to the lighter environment of ship life. He was tall and thin, face lined with decades of command stress. He looked around at the open sky, the fields beyond the landing pad, the horizon stretching endlessly in all directions. Alice saw his iron composure crack just slightly. His eyes glistened. "We dreamed of this," Gray said quietly. "Every generation. We told our children about planets, about wind and rain and horizons. Most of them died never knowing if it was real or just stories we told to keep hope alive." Alice approached and extended her hand. Gray shook it, his grip firm despite the obvious strain of standing in full gravity. "Thank you for coming," Alice said. "Thank you for giving us a chance." Gray met her eyes. "Thank you for reminding me we're still human, still capable of mercy. I'd almost forgotten." They walked toward the assembly hall together, Henry and Owen following at a respectful distance. Colonists emerged from shelters, staring at the man who had saved them. Then Lena's voice crackled over Alice's comm, urgent and confused. "Governor, we've got a problem. The distant fleet just went active again. All ships. They're deploying orbital platforms, launching satellites, establishing defensive grids. It looks like they're fortifying the entire system." Alice stopped walking. She turned to Gray slowly. "What is she talking about?" Gray met her gaze without flinching. "We need a home, Governor. We have 16,000 people who have never known anything but ship corridors. New Harvest is the only free human world left. We're claiming it as our base. We'll protect you, improve your infrastructure, integrate our populations." "You're taking over," Alice said flatly. "We're ensuring freedom survives," Gray corrected, "whether you agree or not." 3 days after the battle, New Harvest looked like a different world. Lena walked through the main settlement watching distant fleet personnel install military-grade power conduits along streets that had never needed them. The newcomers worked with mechanical efficiency, barely speaking to each other. Hand signals and practiced routines replaced conversation. A woman who introduced herself as Engineer Director Rita Stone supervised the installation. She was perhaps 40, pale-skinned from a lifetime without sunlight, moving with the careful economy of someone raised in cramped spaces. "We're upgrading your grid to handle defensive systems," Rita explained when Lena asked. "Orbital shield generators require stable power. Your current infrastructure couldn't support them." "We didn't ask for orbital shields," Lena pointed out. Rita looked at her with genuine confusion. "Why would you need to ask? Obviously you need protection. The Dominion will return." That was the problem in a nutshell. The fleet people saw everything through the lens of survival and mission completion. Democracy, consensus, asking permission, these concepts seemed foreign to them. Alice convened an emergency meeting in the assembly hall. Admiral Gray attended along with his senior staff. Captain Iris Chen of the Perseverance sat rigid in her chair, a woman in her 50s with calculating eyes. Paulo Santos, the fleet's chief engineer, kept checking a datapad, apparently uncomfortable with so many people in one room. The Colonial Council faced them across the table. The tension was thick enough to cut. "We need to establish ground rules," Alice began. "This is our world. We've built a society here based on democratic principles. You can't just take over." Gray folded his hands on the table. "We're not taking over. We're integrating. Our populations need to merge for mutual survival." On your terms, Henry said. Your people are installing military systems without consultation. You're reorganizing our agricultural zones. You're making decisions that affect our lives without asking us. Captain Chen spoke for the first time. Governor, with respect, your decision-making process is inefficient. You hold votes on everything. It takes days to accomplish what should take hours. In our experience, democracy is a luxury that survival situations don't allow. We're not in a survival situation anymore, Owen countered. You saved us. We're grateful, but we're not your crew. You can't order us around. Paulo Santos looked up from his datapad. Then how do you make decisions? How do you allocate resources? How do you resolve disputes? We talk, Alice said simply. We debate, we vote, we compromise. The fleet officers exchanged glances that clearly communicated their skepticism. Gray leaned forward. Governor Brennan, my people have lived under military hierarchy for 5 generations. It works. Everyone knows their role. Resources are distributed by algorithm. Disputes are resolved by commanding officers. It's fair and efficient. It's not freedom, Alice said quietly. The room fell silent. Dr. Henry Wade broke the tension by sliding a datapad across the table. We've received responses from Earth. The Earth government has disavowed your actions, Admiral. They claim you acted without authorization and demand you withdraw and apologize to the Dominion. Gray didn't even glance at the datapad. Earth doesn't speak for us. They knelt. We didn't. Earth has 11 billion people, Henry continued. The Dominion has placed them under economic sanctions because of what you did here. Trade has stopped. Earth's economy is collapsing. People will starve if this continues. For the first time, Gray's expression showed something other than cold certainty. He looked at the datapad, reading the reports. They're punishing Earth for our actions, he said slowly. Yes, Alice confirmed. And it will get worse. The Dominion has placed all 23 human colonies under embargo. No trade, no technology exchange, no medical supplies. They're trying to force us back into submission by making everyone else suffer. Gray stood abruptly and walked to the window. Outside, fleet and colonial children played together in a park, the first generation to know both worlds. What would you have me do? Gray asked without turning around. Abandon you, let the Dominion return and finish what they started. No, Alice said. I want you to work with us, not command us. We need your protection, but we also need our freedom. There has to be a middle ground. Gray turned back to face her. A compromise. Yes. Captain Chen shook her head. Compromises are weak. They satisfy no one. They also keep everyone at the table, Henry countered, which is better than the alternative. Alice stood and approached Gray. We propose a dual system. Civilian matters, internal governance, resource allocation for non-military purposes that remains democratic. Defense, external relations, fleet operations that falls under your authority. A joint council makes decisions that affect both populations, half colonists and half fleet representatives. That's messy, Gray said. Democracy usually is, Alice admitted, but it's also fair, and it respects both our cultures. Gray studied her face for a long moment. Behind him, his officers waited for his decision. Alice could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, weighing efficiency against alliance, certainty against compromise. 3 months trial period, Gray finally said. We try your system. If it fails, if it endangers our people or the colony, we revert to fleet protocols. Agreed. Alice extended her hand. Gray shook it. The Joint Council's first real test came 2 weeks later. A message arrived from one of humanity's mining colonies, a settlement called Redstone with 8,000 inhabitants. The Dominion had sent a fleet demanding immediate surrender under the new embargo terms. Redstone had minimal defenses and no ability to resist. The emergency council meeting was chaotic. Fleet representatives wanted to send ships immediately, overwhelming force to drive the Dominion away. Colonial representatives worried about escalation, about starting a war that would consume all human worlds. Alice found herself mediating between two worldviews that seemed impossible to reconcile. The fleet officers saw every problem as requiring a military solution. The colonists saw every military solution as creating new problems. If we don't defend Redstone, 8,000 people become vassals, Gray argued. If we do defend them, we prove humanity won't be pushed around. If we defend them with force, we confirm the Dominion's fears about us, Henry countered. We become the aggressive threat they claim we are. Lena, sitting as the junior colonial representative, raised her hand hesitantly. What if we go but don't shoot first? Show up, make it clear we're willing to fight, but try to negotiate before any weapons fire. Both sides turned to look at her. We demonstrate strength without aggression, she continued. The Dominion sees we're serious, but we're not attacking them. We give them a chance to back down without losing face. Gray frowned. That's a risk. If they don't back down, we're committed to fighting. Everything is a risk, Alice said. But Lena's right. We need to show we're strong and willing to talk, not just one or the other. The vote was close, but it passed. The distant fleet would go to Redstone. They would arrive ready for battle, but seeking peace. Gray stood to leave, then paused. Governor, this compromise approach feels wrong to me. Every instinct I have says to hit them hard and make them fear us. I know, Alice said, but trust me a little longer. Trust that there's value in trying diplomacy before destruction. Gray nodded slowly. 3 months trial period, I'll honor that. As his fleet prepared to jump to Redstone, another message arrived on the old Earth channels, encrypted and marked urgent. Dr. Wade decrypted it and his face went pale. Alice, you need to see this. The message was simple and terrifying. This is Generation Ship Triumph. We heard what happened at New Harvest. We're coming home. We have friends with us. Prepare for contact. Alice felt her stomach drop. More Generation ships were returning, and they were bringing allies. The Redstone system looked peaceful when Admiral Gray's fleet arrived. Too peaceful. 8 Dominion warships hung in orbit around the mining colony, their weapons cold. No threats, no demands, just silent waiting. Alice had traveled aboard the Endurance at Gray's invitation, wanting to be present for whatever happened next. Now she stood on the cramped bridge, watching the tactical display with growing unease. They knew we were coming, Captain Chen observed. They're in defensive formation but not aggressive posture. Gray opened a channel. Dominion Fleet, this is Admiral Castor Gray. We're here to ensure the safety of Redstone Colony. State your intentions. The response came from a Prythene commander named Soval, a being that resembled a crystalline spider. Admiral Gray, your reputation precedes you. We are here under Dominion Council orders to enforce the embargo. We have no desire for conflict. Then leave, Gray said simply. We cannot. Our orders are clear. Alice stepped forward. Commander Soval, this is Governor Alice Brennan of New Harvest. Can we discuss terms? Find a solution that doesn't require violence. Soval's crystalline structure shifted colors, indicating consideration. A discussion could be arranged, but Admiral Gray must power down his weapons as a show of good faith. Absolutely not, Gray responded immediately. Then we are at an impasse. Alice looked at Gray, silently asking permission to try something. He gave a curt nod. Commander Soval, what if we meet face to face? Neutral ground, just talk. No weapons, no threats. If we can't find common ground, then we accept the consequences. Long seconds passed. There is an abandoned trading station in this system, Soval finally said. Coordinates transmitting now. I will meet you there in 6 hours. Bring no more than 3 representatives. The channel closed. Gray turned to Alice. This could be a trap. Everything could be a trap, Alice replied. But talking costs us nothing but time. 6 hours later, Alice, Gray, and Henry Wade sat across a table from Commander Sovol and a being introduced as Architect Myrn of the Crystalline Collective. Myrn was ancient, his structure showing centuries of growth rings. He radiated calm authority. Governor Brennan, Myrn began, his voice like wind chimes. You seek compromise. This is admirable but ultimately futile. The Dominion cannot permit human independence. Why? Alice asked directly. Myrn shifted colors to indicate thoughtfulness. Because your species develops too quickly. In 200 years, you went from pre-spaceflight to colonizing dozens of worlds. You innovate at frightening speeds. The generation ships prove this. Isolated for barely a century, they developed weapons we've never encountered. You're afraid of us, Gray said flatly. We are cautious of you, Myrn corrected. The galaxy has seen aggressive species before. They destabilize everything. The Dominion exists to maintain peace and order. By forcing everyone to submit, Henry said. By preventing chaos, Myrn replied. Your species has potential for greatness or catastrophe. We cannot risk the latter. Alice leaned forward. What if we could prove we're not a threat? What if we agreed to limits? Earth already agreed to limits, Sovol interjected. You violated them by developing military forces without authorization. We didn't develop anything, Alice countered. The generation ships were launched before first contact. They're not a violation of any agreement. Myrn made a sound like crystals grinding together. A technicality that doesn't change the reality. You now possess military capabilities we cannot allow. The negotiation was going nowhere. Alice felt desperation creeping in when alarms suddenly blared through the station. Lena's voice came over Alice's comm from the Endurance. Governor, we've got new contacts entering the system. Multiple ships. They're not Dominion. On the table's holographic display, new vessels appeared. 6 generation ships, their hulls marked with different insignia than Gray's fleet. Alongside them, 20 ships of completely alien design. Gray recognized the generation ships immediately. That's Triumph, Admiral Kestrel Payne's vessel. We lost contact with them 40 years ago. A new channel opened. The face that appeared was a woman in her 50s, scarred and hard-eyed. Admiral Kestrel Payne looked like someone who had fought for every breath she ever took. Castor Gray, Payne said. Heard you finally grew a spine. Thought we'd join the party. Kestrel, what did you bring with you? The image shifted to show an alien being, quadrupedal and scaled. I am Commander Thesh of the Wren Concordance. Our people were exiled from Dominion space 3 centuries ago for refusing submission. We've waited for an opportunity to return. Humanity's rebellion is that opportunity. Sovol's crystalline structure flashed red. The Wren, you dare return to this space? With allies who won't kneel, Thesh replied. Yes. Myrn stood, his ancient structure radiating authority. This is escalation beyond reason. Commander Sovol has 8 ships. Admiral Gray has 47. Admiral Payne has 6. The Wren have 20. Everyone here has the capability to destroy each other. And Redstone Colony sits in the middle, 8,000 civilians who will die in the crossfire. The truth of his words silenced everyone. Alice felt the weight of those 8,000 lives pressing down on her. She thought of New Harvest's children playing in parks, of the fleet refugees seeing sky for the first time, of Earth's billions trapped in a cage of galactic politics. She stood up. Everyone shut up and listened to me. The command in her voice surprised even herself. Every being at the table turned to face her. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to stop threatening each other. We're going to stop positioning for advantage. We're going to actually solve this problem instead of just measuring who has the bigger fleet. Governor, Sovol began. I said shut up, my turn to talk. She walked around the table, making eye contact with each leader. Architect Mern, you say humanity develops too fast and needs containment. Fine. We'll agree to a development cap. 50 years, no expansion beyond current colonies. No new settlements. We stabilize our population and prove we can be responsible neighbors. In exchange, Mern asked, you lift the embargo immediately. All human colonies retain independence and self-governance. The distant fleets get recognized as legitimate human military forces, but they agree to defensive operations only. No offensive actions without Dominion Council approval. That still leaves them armed, Soville objected. Yes, it does, because you don't get to disarm us. We've proven we can defend ourselves. You're going to have to live with that. Gray stood. Governor, 50 years without expansion. My people need worlds to settle, that's too long. Admiral Payne's people can settle on New Harvest and Redstone. That's 22,000 people accommodated right there. The other generation ships, if they show up, will make room. But we don't push outward for 50 years. We consolidate, we build, we prove we're trustworthy. Alice turned to the Wren commander. Thesh, your people get safe passage to unclaimed systems. The Dominion doesn't interfere with your settlement there. In exchange, you don't attack Dominion worlds. Both sides leave each other alone. Thesh's scaled head tilted. And if the Dominion violates this agreement, then you'll have human allies who know how to fight, Alice said simply. Mern's structure shifted through several colors rapidly. You propose a complex web of compromises. The Dominion Council would need to approve this. Then contact them, right now. Tell them the alternative is war that costs everyone everything. Show them projections of what happens if we fight. Show them casualty estimates. Henry, understanding immediately, pulled up data on his pad. A prolonged conflict would cost the Dominion trillions in resources, destabilize at least 40 trade routes, and likely inspire 3 other species to attempt independence movements. Human casualties would be catastrophic, but Dominion losses would be significant too. Mern studied the numbers, so did Soville. This compromise, Mern said slowly, it satisfies no one completely. That's how you know it's fair, Alice replied. Silence stretched for 30 seconds. Then Mern's structure shifted to pale blue, indicating acceptance. I will recommend this to the Council. I believe it will pass, but humanity must honor every term. Any violation and the agreement ends. Gray looked at Alice. You're betting everything on our ability to show restraint. I'm betting on our ability to be more than our worst impulses, Alice corrected. Can you do that? Gray took a long breath. For 50 years, yes, if it keeps us free. The agreement was drafted over the next 6 hours, every detail argued and refined. When it was done, everyone signed knowing it was fragile and imperfect. 3 months later, Alice stood in the New Harvest market watching fleet children and colonists trade goods side by side. The integration was slow and messy, but it was happening. Gray joined her, moving with more confidence in full gravity now. The Council ratified the agreement. It's official. How do you feel about it? Alice asked. Like I crossed 127 years of darkness just to tie my own hands, Gray admitted. But also like we actually accomplished something. We're free, truly free. That's worth compromise. In orbit, the black ships of the distant fleet maintained their watch. On the surface, children who had never known anything but steel corridors played in dirt for the first time. Earth remained under Dominion oversight but no longer alone. Alice looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the evening light. They had told humanity to kneel. Humanity had learned to stand instead. And that changed everything.